Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 Virginia Highway Safety Summit. I am going to go over a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Please remain muted for the duration of the session. We want to avoid background noises that could potentially interrupt our speakers. Secondly, please place all questions in the chat box. Our moderators will be monitoring the chat box and we will conduct a question and answer session at the end. Lastly, you have free control of your viewing mode. You can change the viewing mode at the top of your screen. It defaults to view everyone. We recommend changing that viewing mode to who's talking so you are focused on the speaker. As a final quick note, we will be recording the sessions and we'll be sending out the presentations once the summit is over. With that, I will now turn it over to Mr. Richard Holcomb. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Rick Holcomb, DMV Commissioner, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our 2021 Virtual Highway Safety Summit. First, I'd like to thank our partners at the National Highway Transportation or Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, for their support, and I thank all of you for joining us. It looks like we're close to reaching 100 participants at this point, which is extremely impressive. We are pleased to once again be able to host this wonderful summit this year, as this is an important event. While the virtual format may be a bit of an adjustment, I'm pleased to tell you that next year we will be back in person, and our Highway Safety Summit will be held at the Hilton Alexandria Mark Center in Alexandria, Virginia on May 3rd through the 5th of 2022. And we would suggest that you mark your calendars already for that. We certainly hope to see all of you there. As DMV Commissioner, I am particularly proud of our sessions this year. Not only will they be informative and thought-provoking, they'll also address how we have overcome our current challenges and move forward together. I can't think of a better way to get started at this year's summit than to introduce to you our first speaker, Virginia's Secretary of Transportation, the Honorable Shannon Valentine. Secretary Valentine was appointed by Governor Northam as Secretary of Transportation in January 2018. She oversees a $5 billion multimodal transportation system covering 7 agencies with more than 10,000 employees. Now, I know that a typical mother would not pick her favorite child, but I can tell you on good record that I know that the DMV is the Secretary's favorite child in the transportation agencies. As Secretary, she also serves as the chair of the Commonwealth Transportation Board. She's a former member of the Virginia House of Delegates, serving the House Transportation Committee and on the Courts of Justice committees. I will tell you, I've worked for a number of secretaries. Secretary Valentine is one of the best. She is always engaged, and I will tell you, highway safety is a top priority. I remember sitting down with her when she was only in the position for a few months, and she pretty much said that was a top priority and a top priority of the governor. So please join me in welcoming Secretary Valentine. Secretary Valentine.
Hello. Let's see. Oh, sorry. It's a little bit delayed. There we go. Let me see if I can. Hi, everybody. Commissioner Holcomb, there is no doubt who is my favorite. And I'm just so pleased to be able to be here with you all today. I thank you for that introduction and really for your partnership and friendship during this administration. I'd also like to thank Deputy Commissioner George Bishop and your entire team, Commissioner, for allowing me to help kick off the summit here today. As you all will all hear from Commissioner Holcomb and Stephen Cliff, Acting Administrator for NHTSA, 2020 was a deadly year on our highways and byways across the Commonwealth and across our nation, despite the pandemic and a sharp reduction in vehicle traffic. In Virginia, 847 people died as a result of vehicle crashes in 2020. It's just so devastating. Speed-related fatalities increased to the highest number in at least 10 years, with 406 fatalities reported, a 16% jump over 2019. And the number of people who were not wearing a seatbelt killed as a result of crashes also increased in 2020, with 343 fatalities reported compared to 304 in 2019. While it's easy to lose our way in the tragedy of these numbers, there are two important realities for us to keep in mind. The first is that these are not numbers, that these are indeed human beings with people and families who love them. And it's also important to keep in mind that we must focus on moving the ball forward this year and years to come to change those numbers, which is why it's so important to me that the name of this summit is Moving Forward Together. But how do we do that? Well, there are many factors involved in saving lives on our roadways. The first is awareness. Safe driving is a series of choices a driver makes to operate a motor vehicle in a manner that minimizes the risk, not only to themselves, but to those around them. For example, we know that proper seatbelt use reduces the risk of fatal injury to front seat passengers by 45%, according to NHTSA. If we can convince the 15% of Virginians who still don't wear a seatbelt when they buckle up, we can save so many lives. One way we are working to encourage drivers of the benefits of buckling is our Local Heroes campaign. The Local Heroes campaign spotlights emergency responders who share their first-hand experience with life-saving power of seatbelts. This video series features first responders and healthcare professionals in the Tidewater area. And to be honest, I just drove in from being there. DMV is getting ready to release the latest series of Local Heroes videos, and I'm so pleased and proud to be able to debut one with you here today. So I'm going to turn it over to the team, and we're going to take a look at the first at this video.
Hi, I'm a firefighter paramedic based here in Norfolk.
Me too. We'd like to show you.
A safety device we both use to save lives.
It's not a heart monitor.
Our turnout gear.
Or even a stethoscope.
Ready? That sound saves 15,000 lives a year.
Make today the day you save a life.
Maybe even yours.
So buckle up, Norfolk.
A message from the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles.
Well, Tidewater, Norfolk, they all have a chance of creating these videos, and I thank you all. My husband's a cardiologist. He would so appreciate the work that you're doing and for calling attention to the power of seatbelts. Another area that we can move the ball forward is alcohol-related crashes. Drunk driving crashes are 100% preventable. If we can convince people not to drink and drive, we can save hundreds of lives each year in Virginia alone. Virginia was the first state, as some of you may remember, to partner with the Driver Alcohol Detection System for Safety Program, or DADS, to help develop awareness and technology to eliminate drunk driving and save lives on a roadway. The passive breath or touch-based technology can determine when a driver is impaired with a blood alcohol concentration at or above 0.08%, the legal limit, and prevent the car from moving. I will share with those of you here today that in 2018, Commissioner Holcomb invited Governor Northam and I to come over for an event where we were unveiling this partnership on DADS with James River Transportation. And the governor and I we attended the event. We were told as we got into a vehicle that the car would not start if one of us had consumed alcohol. I will let you know that it was 10 o'clock in the morning, that there were media and journalists all around us. The cameras were on. We got into the vehicle and the car would not start. And I can just remember looking at the governor and saying, well, it wasn't me. But the truth was, I think he had actually put some alcohol wipes on his hands, and the detection system was able to pick that up. But just such important technology, and we have been committed to this throughout this entire administration, and we really look forward to this technology being available for all of us. And so, with Virginia being a pioneer with DADS technology and the powerful implications that it has for our world, it is still critical for all of us to take personal responsibility, which is why I am challenging each of us to expand upon the great work already being done and take on a personal mission to save at least one life this year. I'm certainly not encouraging you, as many of our local heroes, to run into burning buildings, although I know some of you do. But I am encouraging you to use and touch base with your circle of influence to change the unsafe driving behaviors of as many people as you can in the remaining 6 months or so of 2021, and I would say for the rest of our lives, with the thought that if we can all do that, we may well save the lives not only of those individuals, but the lives of those they may touch as well. Sharing a safety message on your Facebook page, convince your workplace to adopt a mandatory seatbelt use policy, educate a teen on why it's unsafe and illegal to text behind the wheel, host a bicycle helmet drive for a local Boys and Girls Club, ask a driver to follow the speed limit when you're in the car with them. More than 100 people, I believe Commissioner Holcomb said, have signed up to attend this summit. Imagine if we could all do this, perhaps sparing more than 100 families from the unspeakable heartbreak of losing a loved one in a preventable crash. Each of us has the power to make a difference, but together we can truly move forward in our mission towards zero deaths on our roadways. I thank you for what you do each and every day for highway safety. I hope you are inspired and re-energized by the ideas that are going to be shared at this year's summit. I'm always inspired and re-energized when I work with Commissioner Holcomb and the entire team at DMV. I know that in moving forward together, we will make a difference. I thank you all for being there. I thank you for joining with us to make safety a priority, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Valentine, for those informative and very inspiring words. And to the audience, I think you can see why it's so much fun being part of the Secretary's team. She is so committed, and she really is a wonderful, wonderful person to be around. So thank you,
My
Madam Secretary.
favorite commissioner, right? My favorite agency.
Yeah, there
Thanks,
you go.
everybody. Bye.
The minutes are going to reflect that, Secretary. Thank you, ma'am. You have a great rest of the day. And now I'm very pleased to present to you a video message from Dr. Stephen Cliff, who is the acting administrator of NHTSA. Dr. Cliff would have preferred to be here in person, but we're very thankful that he's able to take some time with us to share his message with us. Dr. Cliff oversees the nation's vehicle safety agency that sets safety standards and identifies safety defects, manages recalls, and educates Americans to help them drive, ride, and walk safely. NHTSA's work also includes establishing fuel economy regulations and helping facilitate the testing and deployment of advanced vehicle technologies. Dr. Cliff recently served as the Deputy Executive Officer at the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, an organization he first joined in 2008 as an air pollution specialist. Since then, Dr. Cliff has held a variety of positions at CARB, eventually overseeing its climate program. Through the years, he has supported independent air quality and climate research programs while balancing his time at CARB, including being an improved program coordinator at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory's Advanced Light Source. Dr. Cliff received his bachelor's degree and doctorate in chemistry from the University of California at San Diego. He then completed a postdoctorate on atmospheric sciences at the University of California, Davis's Department of Land, Air, and Water Resources. Today, Dr. Cliff will be speaking about the impact of the 2020 pandemic on national traffic safety and discussing some strategies that this administration, the Biden administration, is implementing to reduce crashes, injuries, and facilities. And now, Dr. Cliff.
Hi, I'm Steve Cliff, NHTSA's acting administrator, and thank you for inviting me to join you today. After the year we've had, I'd say that your conference theme, 2021 Moving Forward Together, is very apt. Thanks also to Richard Holcomb, George Bishop, and John Saunders for your continued leadership and commitment to saving lives on Virginia's roads. We truly appreciate all that you do. I'm honored to work with all of Virginia's traffic safety professionals to reduce fatalities, prevent crashes, and ensure that our roads are safe for everyone, inside or outside a vehicle. NHTSA's relationships with safety partners like you are critical to advancing our shared safety mission, and I look forward to strengthening those relationships and finding new ways to work together. Safety remains NHTSA's top priority, and behavioral safety is an important part of our work. It's even more vital as we respond to the risky driving behaviors we saw during the 2020 pandemic. Just last month, NHTSA released our 2020 early estimates, and the top line numbers show how vital our safety work is. Our 2020 early estimates show the largest projected number of fatalities since 2007, with 38,680 people killed on our roads in America. That's a 7.2% increase from 2019. While vehicle miles traveled declined by more than 13%, the fatality rate for 2020 increased to 1.37 fatalities per 100 million VMT. Our projections also show significant fatality increases in the third and fourth quarters of 2020 as compared to the same time in 2019. And to a large extent, the increases in risky behaviors we saw early in the year continued in the fourth quarter of 2020. When we compared 2020 to 2019, we saw double-digit increases in several categories, including occupant ejection fatalities and speeding-related crash fatalities. Virginia wasn't immune to this rise in risky driving behaviors, as the pandemic reversed several years of declines in traffic fatalities. I was struck by the fact that the number of Virginia crashes involving alcohol, cell phones, teen drivers, and motorcycles were actually down last year compared to 2019. But the number of fatalities in each of those categories were up. So while there may have been fewer crashes, those crashes were more severe or more likely to be fatal. That's a very sobering thought. As you can see, there's a lot of work to be done to ensure these tragic trends don't continue into 2021. I know the Virginia Highway Safety Office is working on measures to reverse these trends on Virginia's roads. We appreciate your efforts, including your leadership on technology innovation. Please don't hesitate to reach out to NHTSA's regional office if we can help. We continue to work with stakeholders to address these risky behaviors, and we want to work with states to reverse these trends and save lives. One way we can save lives on the road is through a safe system approach. Everyone, including those who design, build, operate, and use the road system, shares in the responsibility for road safety. This administration believes, as do I, in the safe system approach. This administration believes in a safe system that is people-focused, infrastructure that serves the needs of its users, not the other way around. A safe system approach incorporates the 5 E's: equity, engineering, education, enforcement, and emergency medical services. We must ensure everyone is working to make our transportation systems safe for everyone. To succeed, we need you to help lead this conversation in Virginia. That means breaking down silos, help make safety everyone's priority and everyone's responsibility, regardless of job title or agency. We need all system managers and system users to be part of the conversation, and you can help facilitate that. From community and advocacy organizations to public safety officials and transportation experts to law enforcement and first responders, everyone has a role to play. And of course, don't forget the voices of those who use the roads, particularly those in communities of color, marginalized communities, and people with disabilities. Road users see and experience the roads in a completely different way than an engineer or director. NHTSA will fully integrate the needs of all road users, not just drivers and passengers, but pedestrians, cyclists, children, older Americans, and people with disabilities as we move forward over the next 4 years. NHTSA is actively engaged with the other modes at USDOT's working group on the safe system approach, and we're excited to collaborate on this major evolution for the culture of safety. Our safety campaigns, which I'm sure you're familiar with, embrace the safe system approach to educate road users about their roles and responsibilities. Many of these campaigns include high visibility enforcement, which combine public awareness with enforcement. As state and local law enforcement continues to prevent crashes and save lives, it's critical that these efforts are carried out in a fair and equitable way. We are actively discussing equity issues with law enforcement, as well as examining internally how we can better ensure equity in our programs and messaging. Everything we do at NHTSA is focused on ensuring the safety of the American public on our roads, no matter how they travel. It's a responsibility we take seriously, and one that I know you do as well. Thank you for everything you do to keep Virginians safe, and I hope you'll come away from this summit with new ideas and new strategies to implement in your communities. Thanks again for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Cliff, for that very important message. I agree wholeheartedly that this summit is an excellent opportunity to learn new traffic safety strategies and share ideas that will make our communities safer. As many of you know, we were not able to hold this summit last year due to the pandemic. As Dr. Cliff said, the past 15 months have been a time of upheaval and loss for so many. We saw that loss reflected in Virginia roads through the overall increase in highway safety, highway fatalities, including a sharp increase in unrestrained and speed-related injuries and fatalities. When I read these grim statistics, my heart breaks, as each of us know they're not just numbers, but they're families. They're people with families. Remembering the gravity of the loss motivates me, as I'm sure it does each of you, to rededicate our focus to the core of our mission as highway safety professionals. With that said, there is some good news. As of July 12th, 2021, compared to the same date in 2020, while we have seen a 2.5 increase in overall fatalities, we've also seen an 11.6 decrease in unrestrained fatalities, a 9.1% decrease in pedestrian fatalities, and a 27.3% decrease in fatalities involving mature drivers age 65 and over. These preliminary statistics indicate that while our traffic safety messaging, along with enforcement, is resonating in some parts of our emphasized areas, there's clearly still work to be done to achieve overall change. We will continue focusing on educating our residents, enforcing the law, improving our infrastructure through engineering, and supporting EMS professionals as they save lives, and prioritizing equity to ensure that safety of all of those who use our highways. In keeping with that mission, I'm proud to say that we have several jurisdictions across the state that have achieved our goal of zero deaths, the goal of zero traffic deaths in 2019. These jurisdictions have shown that zero is not impossible, and I'm proud to recognize them today. If we were in person, I would be handing them a plaque that talks about zero in Virginia, eyes on the road. And so let me recognize those jurisdictions. For recognition of zero traffic deaths in 2019, I want to recognize the following jurisdictions: Allegheny County, the city of Covington, the city of Harrisonburg, and the city of Stanton. For recognition of 0 traffic deaths in 2020, Highland County, the city of Colonial Heights, the city of Emporia, city of Galax, the city of Radford, the city of Salem, and the city of Waynesboro. For recognition of 0 traffic deaths in both 2019 and 2020, the city of Buena Vista, the city of Falls Church, the city of Franklin, the city of Hopewell, the city of Lexington, the city of Manassas Park, the city of Norton, and the city of Winchester. And now the jurisdictions that have achieved 0 traffic deaths for 5 consecutive years. I'm proud to recognize the city of Buena Vista, the city of Falls Church, the city of Hopewell, the city of Lexington, the city of Manassas Park, and the city of Norton. Finally, I'm extremely pleased to recognize the city of Buena Vista, which has achieved 0 deaths for 10 consecutive years. Let me repeat that. Has achieved 0 deaths for the last decade. To all of our 0 fatality jurisdictions, thank you for your hard work and dedication to traffic safety. Your program manager will be in contact with you to coordinate the delivery of the recognition plaques. And I certainly hope and expect to see many of you, if not all of you, present for next year's awards as well. Thank you for everything that you've done, making the streets of your jurisdiction so much safer. Now, to kick off our first session of the summit, it's my honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Jane Terry, the National Safety Council's Vice President of Government Affairs. Jane is an experienced policy and legislative leader with nearly 20 years of experience working with local, state, and federal government officials on transportation, telecommunications, and workplace safety, community development, and healthcare initiatives. Prior to joining the National Safety Council, Jane served as the Director of Government Affairs at the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB. In this role, she effectively communicated the work of NTSB to congressional leaders, resulting in a high level of funding for the agency during a time of budget crisis. Her education and advocacy efforts resulted in many NTSB safety recommendations in the area of aviation, pipeline, rail, and highway safety becoming law. At NTSB, Jane developed the platform for on-scene government affairs support for accident investigations. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Go Tar Heels. Even though I'm wearing my UVA tie today, I'm a huge Tar Heel fan. With a degree in political science and economics. Here to discuss the safe systems approach to highway safety, please join me in welcoming Jane Terry. Jane?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Holcomb, and even with your UVA tie, appreciate that shout out for the heels and the one from Roderick Howard too in the chat. Thank you so much for having me here today. I am actually, I live in Arlington, so the fact that my home state is having this highway safety conference is even that more meaningful to me. Because of how much safety really means to me and how much I know together we can really make a difference here. And just real quick, just want to check. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep, you're good to go.
Great, thank you. So also just wanted to give a shout out to John Saunders and also George Bishop, in addition to Commissioner Holcomb, for inviting me here today and hosting this event. Again, I'm so happy to be here and so glad that you're focusing on roadway safety today. And also so happy to hear the celebration of the towns that have 0 fatalities and counties and cities as well. So quickly, just a little bit about the National Safety Council. So we are over 100-year-old nonprofit founded by the business community to improve workplace safety. And during our history of working on this topic, we have realized that roadway safety is an integral part of that too. And so our mission today is really keeping people safe from the workplace to every place. And we have actually nearly 1,000 members who are in Virginia as well. So this has been mentioned before, but I think it bears repeating here up front. I'll go through some of the data that we've seen. As you all know, last year during the pandemic, so many people stopped driving and just being mobile altogether. However, we did not experience a safety benefit from that. Even though there were less people on the roads, they were actually deadlier nationally last year. The National Safety Council, we provide estimates of fatalities. We calculate our numbers slightly differently from NHTSA, so they're a little bit higher. But you can see we estimate 42,060 people lost their lives in preventable crashes in 2020. That's 115 people on average each and every day in this country. And unfortunately, we saw a huge spike in the death rate year over year because of that huge drop in traffic. It's a 24% increase in the death rate from between 2019 and 2020. This is the largest one-year increase in this country since NSC started collecting these data early in the last century. Unfortunately, it's not getting much better either. Even though traffic is still down in a lot of places, a lot of it is returning to much more normal levels. So people were driving more in April, but our fatalities were still up over 2020, which is understandable because that's right at the beginning of the lockdowns when people really started staying at home. So we had a huge increase over April in 2020, in 2021. But even in 2019, we also saw an increase as well here. And you can see these numbers that break down the first 4 months of the year from 2019, 2020, and 2021, and those fatality numbers. With January, the green, February, blue, March is the yellow, and April is that navy blue up top. And so this is the national data from January through April. I just found out today too that we do have some May data that I'll be able to share with you as well. So you can see here in April, we've got that 49% increase in the April fatality numbers in 2021 versus April of 2020. And a 22% increase over April of 2019. Again, when the traffic numbers are going to be much more comparable. So we still have some issues here, and it's continuing into May. So the numbers that I've got for May show that in the first 5 months that there is a 20% increase in the fatalities in May over 2020, and a 16% increase in those first 5 months of 2021 from 2019. And in Virginia, you also are up in the state with an 11% increase over 2020 numbers and a 4% increase over the 2019 numbers. So what does this look like? And you can see, I wanted to show this to give you some comparison of where Virginia is compared to the other states in the nation. The darker red the color is, the higher the fatalities were in 2020. Virginia is a neutral color, which is a good thing. You had an increase, but it wasn't as big as some of the other areas of the country. You can see you had a 2% increase in your fatalities in 2020 over 2019. 847, as the secretary mentioned, still too many. People who just went out for a walk or a bike ride or a drive and never return home. So let's look at these causes. And I don't think you're going to be terribly surprised by any of these. Many of them have been mentioned already, but it really helps to focus where we should be focusing our time and attention. If we understand the data and understand the causes of these crashes and these fatalities. And I thought it would be good to provide this historical perspective, looking at our three main areas of causes of fatalities. And that's belts, booze, and speed. You can see speeding is that green block, with seatbelt use, lack of seatbelt use being the blue, and that yellow being impairment. And one of the things I want to talk about impairment specifically is we can't just say drunk driving anymore, because too often what we're seeing is a multi-substance impaired driver who's being reckless on the roadways and causing their death or the deaths of others on the roads. And it's something just to keep in mind as we shift and think about, again, the causes of these fatalities and what we can do to actually prevent them from happening in the first place. And so you can see the big increase in 2020 of the causes of those fatalities. Again, Virginia is not unique in what you're seeing. We did see nationally a huge increase in impaired driving, a huge increase in speeding, where people thought that the open road meant it was their own racetrack, it seems like, and also a lack of seatbelt use. I also have to mention distraction was a big issue as well on the roads, and all too often it was a combination of more than one of these factors that led to some of the fatalities in 2020. So in some areas of the country, we are looking at changing some of our laws around certain substances, and they may be known by their build numbers. So I just wanted to start with those here. But here you can see these are all different forms that marijuana can take and how it's consumed today. We changed the laws in Virginia around the treatment and the legality of marijuana in the state. I think with that, one of the things that we communicated to the policymakers in Virginia from the National Safety Council is the fact that we still need to be very careful with impaired driving, and that now that the substance is legal, people may be more likely to use and then go out driving on the roadways. Whereas before, when it was illegal, they probably were a little more likely to use and stay at home. So part of changing the laws around marijuana in the state, you must be working also to really be clear on messaging that driving while high does not make you a better driver. And then in fact, marijuana is impairing. And we need to be careful when we're using that we're not doing something that requires a lot of attention, like driving behind the wheel. And we would welcome an opportunity to work with you on that as well. Again, one of the things that we have to be mindful of are what are these substances that people are being found, what's being found in their bodies of people who are impaired in impaired crashes. National Safety Council has actually done some of this research, and Virginia actually did participate in submitting data from drug impaired driving crashes. You can see the top 15 substances here and the frequency that they were found in labs that responded. These are toxicology labs from all around the country. THC, which is the active substance in marijuana, is that top one. But the top 5 are probably not a big surprise to you. It is, of course, marijuana, several benzodiazepines, cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. A lot of these are some of the leftovers of the opioid epidemic, which we are still struggling with today. And you can see people are using these substances and going out on the roadways. One of the things that we need to do to get a better handle on drug-impaired driving nationally and also the drug epidemic is to have better lab testing of these substances in our drug-impaired driving cases. And that's actually one thing the National Safety Council is working to do, is to create more standardization around the country so that we're at least testing for these top substances that we know are found in drug-impaired driving cases in the nation. As I said, the data will help us to be able to craft the messaging to help prevent people from doing this or deal with the problem of drug-impaired driving. And also it'll shed better light on what the overall drug problem is in this country as well, by identifying trends in certain areas of the country. Seatbelt use has been mentioned already, and I can't help but reiterate it more, that in Virginia, we need a primary seatbelt law. When states enact primary seatbelt laws, belt use increases and you save lives. I would greatly encourage the General Assembly, when they go into session next year, to consider enacting a primary seatbelt law in the state of Virginia, because I know that it would save lives. And in the meantime, I think do try to be an influencer, a safety influencer with the communities where you have influence, and encourage people to buckle up each and every ride in the type of seat that is appropriate for them. And you can see here, 4 million more people would be belted if the secondary states, people with secondary enforcement, moved to primary enforcement laws. That's a lot more people and a lot of lives saved as well. And I can't help but say too, of course, we need this law, and ensuring that the fair and equitable enforcement of a primary seatbelt law is going to be key in making sure it's successful as well. And while talking about how we keep people safely in vehicles, I do want to mention one of the issues that National Safety Council works on, and that is preventing death from heat stroke, especially by children. This, of course, is an issue for older adults and pets. Don't leave any of these people or animals in vehicles unattended. The temperature inside of a vehicle rises very quickly, much faster than you may expect, even on days when it doesn't seem like it's that hot outside. We've got a free training at nsc.org/hotcars that's available in English and Spanish that takes only about 10 to 15 minutes, and it can really help educate everyone out there on how they can be active in preventing these types of deaths in the future. We can do more in this space, and it takes everybody paying attention to help out. So I've laid out some of the data for all of us to be thinking about. And I do want to flip this, because this isn't just sharing the what could be construed as bad information with you, but also where do we go from here? And how does this whole thing of the safe system approach really fit in? So I have to say that back in 2016, the National Safety Council and the US Department of Transportation got together and asked a lot of these same questions of how do we really make change here? We started to look at some other countries and what are they doing that we could learn from as well, because we certainly don't have to recreate the wheel. And you can see some examples here from Norway and Brazil of creating safe space for all people to be mobile, no matter how they're choosing to get around. So in 2016, the National Safety Council and US Department of Transportation actually started the Road to Zero Coalition. And I think the Virginia DMV was one of our founding coalition members with us. We also have some others from Virginia, VASAP, Virginia Department of Transportation, and some of the towns of Alexandria, Richmond, Roanoke, and Newport News that are also members of the Road to Zero Coalition. We have over 1,500 from around the country. It's free to join, so if you haven't joined already, please do. And it really says these groups are coming together with the belief that we can reach zero fatalities. And if anything, what I've learned from this presentation already is that there are plenty of towns and counties and cities out there in Virginia that are actually realizing zero fatalities. It's not just a tagline. In 2018, we released this report that really laid out 3 ways that we can reach to zero fatalities. It's double down on what work, accelerate technology, and prioritize safety. As mentioned earlier, you're doing some of these things already. This is actually a picture of a dad's vehicle from what Secretary Valentine had talked about. Virginia is the only state in the nation, I believe, that is doing active testing of this technology in partnership with USDOT. This type of technology is one that can eliminate alcohol impaired driving by taking in the breath from the person in the passenger area, or using the touch start button to be able to detect alcohol in the bloodstream as well. The car won't even start if a person is detected as having alcohol above the legal limit. And I have to say too, you are on the right track. You have committed to a Commonwealth-wide goal of 0 deaths in Virginia. And again, we will be celebrating with the towns and counties that have a 0 fatalities after this event too. Thank you for taking time to recognize them and for the commitment to 0 fatalities on the roadway. Again, it's more than a tagline. It's something that's really going to work its way into every aspect of policy and make sure that safety is guiding what you're doing on the roadways to prevent these fatalities in the future. So what is the safe system approach? The National Transportation Safety Board, as you heard, where I worked before the National Safety Council, is actually holding some great listening sessions about the safe system approach so you can learn more. They've already held 2, and they are recorded on their website. I highly recommend listening into those to learn more. But you can see here, it's really 5 main elements. It's safe roads, safe road users, safe speeds, safe vehicles, and effective post-crash care that go into making up the safe system for all roadway users, no matter how you're choosing to be mobile. And behind the idea of safe systems is the fact that people do make mistakes, but the cost of those mistakes should not be that they lose their life. We can do better on designing our roadways and systems so that that doesn't happen. As mentioned in the safe systems approach, one of the things that we have to get a better handle on is speeding. Automated enforcement is a proven effective countermeasure that changes people's behavior around speeding. The National Safety Council, together with several other safety groups, including Virginia-based IIHS, issued this checklist for communities that are looking to implement automated enforcement. With this checklist, you can see tips on how to implement it so that safety is really the focus of the program, as opposed to other things that can really derail and detract from the positive influence that automated enforcement can have. It does slow people down, and it helps with enforcement of red lights as well. For me, learning about safe system was really transformational. And one of the things that helped me was to be able to see the pictures of what does a safe system look like. So here are a few examples that I thought would be good to share with you from different types of environments that are in Virginia today. And you can see how it could apply to each of these. Now this picture is from Arizona. You can see the picture on the left is a very traditional T intersection. If there is somebody trying to beat a red light, there's going to be a T-bone crash at this intersection at a high rate of speed. They're very violent, will most likely cause injuries and potentially fatalities. However, looking at engineering this intersection, to the one on the right with the roundabout engineers in safety. With the left intersection, that's probably a little more familiar to all of us, you have 32 potential points of failure. Adding the roundabout, you actually engineer those points of failure down to 8. So you're engineering in safety automatically by making this choice. Speeds are decreased. You can see there's very clear marking for where pedestrians and cyclists should be operating as well. And if there is a crash that occurs in this space, it's going to be at an odd angle and a lower rate of speed, which also will improve the outcome of those crashes. Let's take a look at another environment. Here, this is from New York, so an urban setting. And you can see, again, the picture on the left, the lane markings are not clear. Where pedestrians or cyclists should be operating is certainly not clear or not even an option in some of the cases. But by really taking a look and redesigning that, this area, this intersection, you can see how much better it is and how much clearer it is on the right, where you can see where people should be walking. You shorten the exposure of pedestrians to vehicle traffic as well, so adding in safety there, making the stop sign clearer. There's a lot more safety in the picture on the right than the one on the left, you can see. And this is not just a solution for suburban and urban settings, but rural areas as well. I'm sure all of you know these are rumble strips, and to be perfectly honest, I have had to use rumble strips to wake myself up when driving, because I drove when I was too fatigued to drive. These were trips coming home from college, from UNC, driving all the way back to Georgia. And now that I know so much more about rumble strips, I thank the state of South Carolina for having rumble strips installed along I-85. Rumble strips reduce head-on crashes by 44 to 64% and run off the road crashes by 13 to 51%. I think we all know the death rate, the fatality rate on our rural roads. A lot of these are single vehicle run off the road crashes. If we can add engineering like rumble strips, also cable median barriers, and looking at the type of aggregate that we use on the roads as well that can help actually shorten the stopping distance for vehicles, we can create changes and engineer in safety and embrace the safe system approach in some of these rural areas as well. There are a lot of different jurisdictions, different states that have implemented these measures and seen some great results from them. National Safety Council was pleased to participate in an effort by Johns Hopkins University to create this report, the Safe System Consortium report, that issued several recommendations, a lot to the federal government, but I think a lot of them are very relevant for policymakers at all levels of government as well, about how do we really implement the safe system approach. And it is really reevaluating how you are allocating your resources and the types of projects that you're funding as well. And also thinking about how we can do that in an equitable manner. We know that some areas do not have the same safety measures that have been installed in them and have higher crash rates as a result. How can we be very intentional when we are designing and fixing roadways to make sure that those areas are receiving the necessary upgrades that they need to ensure safe mobility for all roadway users? So again, what are we talking about when we talk about safe systems? It is safe roads, it is safe speeds, it's safe road users, safe vehicles, and effective post-crash care. And I'd like to show you an example from Virginia, where I live in Arlington, of how they are actually implementing this as part of their Vision Zero program in the county. You can do this anywhere within the state to look at. Here you can see how they have mapped out for the county where the crashes have occurred, and the red dots are the fatal crashes. This is not unique to Arlington, where a lot of crashes are really centered on certain arteries within the county, and these are called high crash corridors. In a lot of areas in this country, if you do this, you will quickly see what are the most dangerous areas. This data collection and evaluation is one way, using that safe system approach again, to ensure that you're focusing your resources exactly where you need to be focusing it. And I encourage you all to take a look in your own areas throughout the state of where are your high injury and fatal crashes occurring, so that you can really focus resources to fix those areas in particular and improve safety overall. So I've presented a lot of information here to all of you, and I hope some of this will resonate with you and you'll remember it. But I know a lot of this is going to take some time to implement too. So I've got one thing here that I want to make sure to share with you as I'm getting ready to close out. And that is an easy change that we can all make. And that is changing from using the word accident to crash. These are definitely not accidents. As has been said by so many people before me, these are preventable events. They are crashes. And the more we can use the word crash, it's a subtle but important shift in how we think about being mobile, safely mobile on our roadways in this country. I think for me personally, I started my journey down this road when I was 9 years old. And I remember my mother lost her sister to a crash, a preventable crash. And I remember how that affected her. I know I'm not the only one in this audience who has an experience like that. And these are completely preventable. 100 people a day we're expecting to lose in crashes around the country. We can and should and must do more. And I appreciate that you're focusing time and effort and energy on this in Virginia, and I look forward to working with you more on it. I also just encourage you to join us in trying to help deliver this message as well at the federal level through this website, zerotrafficdeaths.org. And through this, we're really trying to communicate to officials at USDOT that they need to establish a goal of zero fatalities as well. With that goal, like in Virginia, safety is really going to be the North Star of the decisions that they're making and the programs that they're implementing to save lives. We know zero is possible. You've got several communities in Virginia that can tell you more about how they got there. And I look forward to working with you to ensure that more communities are on those lists going forward for Virginia and around the country as well. I appreciate your inviting me here today and taking a little bit of time out as you start your conference here. And I look forward to working with you more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, for that excellent presentation. Very much appreciated. Now I'd like to turn it over to John Saunders, Director of our Virginia DMV Highway Safety Office, who will moderate questions and answers. John?
Thank you, Rick. There we go. Thank you, Rick. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you, Jane, for that excellent presentation. Always good to see you. A good friend. We appreciate you, and we appreciate that you're a fellow Virginian. That's for sure. And yeah, even well, I wear my North Carolina. Well, it's not really North Carolina blue, but it's blue. So I'll just say it's North Carolina blue. Okay. All right. So I want to just remind everyone.
Actually, John, I'm sorry. That's Duke blue. You don't need that. Is not North Carolina blue. Sorry.
It's probably the light in this room. Well, Jane, again, we thank you for that presentation and really the deeper look at our numbers as well. And we can, we get to know those numbers and we talk them every day. But you know what? I don't think you can ever get tired of hearing them and continue to reinforce what those numbers are and what those numbers are about. And they're not only numbers, but they are people that are involved. moms and dads and parents. And so it's a great work that you do. It's a great work that National Safety Council does in this area. And we just appreciate you taking your time to be with us this afternoon and agreeing to take a few questions. I would just remind everyone who is with us today that in the chat section, if you have a question that you would like to propose to Jane, please feel free to go ahead and just jot that down, and we'll do our best to get that question before her. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with a question. Again, just in keeping with what we're doing, Jane, as you know, and you point out the number you gave us, there was 115 people who died a day across our nation in traffic crashes, and they're killed on our roadways while they're walking, while they're biking, while they're riding or driving. And most motor vehicle crashes are motor vehicle crashes are also the leading cause of death for youth in the U.S. However, as you know, over the years, it has been very difficult to keep the focus on highway safety. The current U.S. culture seems to express a sense of complacency and inevitability that people will die on our roadways, and it's just a risk we have to take to go about our lives. My question is, do you believe the safe system approach will lead to transforming the U.S. highway safety culture to a culture of safety and zero deaths?
Yeah, thank you for that question, John. That's a great question. And the point that you're getting at of changing our culture and the way that we think about this is so key to making these changes. And it has to go hand in hand with what we're doing. I know in Arlington, for example, when they are making changes to the roadway design as part of implementing some of their Vision Zero planning, they're actually doing a lot of engagement with the community as well. And they're bringing us along, asking questions, surveying us, asking for input. It's helpful because some people, they see the changes, they don't understand them. They think it's just going to add time to their commute. They don't understand that it's a safety measure. And I feel like if people knew more about it, they would be more accepting rather than moving to complaining first thing. Some of these changes implemented as a part of a safe system, I think has to go hand in hand with the community engagement and community education as well to really shift that culture.
I would agree. Now, I don't see any related questions. Well, so I'm just going to continue to talk to you. We had just have a little dialogue here. You brought up an interesting topic, what you just talked about, and community involvement, and the need for honesty and transparency with our communities that we're involved in, especially those communities of color, lower income communities, those communities where we in some cases have lost the trust of those communities. So I guess my question is well, maybe a statement, but a question also. Are we working really to get in to work with those communities where we're seeing those type of disparities, where we're seeing that the infrastructure really has been devastated by some decisions many decades ago? And so we're seeing higher fatality rates. We're seeing more crashes in those communities. Are we bringing the community and those community organizations to the table when we're doing the planning that we're doing to move forward in those communities? I think that's just so important that we be able to do that so that we can get their involvement in making these decisions going forward and not just kind of be checking the box to say that, you know, we've already made our decision, now we want your input. No, we need to have them in the process, especially with the infrastructure bills and things that we're looking at that are on the table. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for you for us to do that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for that question, John. And please, others, put any questions in the chat that you may have about this or other topics. I think you're right on. You have to engage the community. You have to bring the community around. You have to take a look at your infrastructure and the state of your infrastructure and as we know, there are definitely areas throughout the country where there's been an underinvestment in our infrastructure, or maybe decisions made that used infrastructure to divide communities, as an example. We have to take a look at that, see the impact on safety, see the impact on the communities, work with them directly, rebuild that trust, and see how we can make sure that we're distributing these safety improvements equitably going forward. There are some bills in the Congress that are being debated now that would encourage states to do things like that, and it actually provides funding to help with that as well. So there's a definite focus on it, and there's nothing stopping states from pursuing measures like this as well, to really have a hard, tough look at some of the decisions that have been made in the past, maybe decades ago, and how can we make sure that those decisions, if changes need to be made, that they can be made in a way with the community involved, with the community at the table, and being part of the project, as opposed to the work being done to the community without their involvement. It takes a lot of intention, it takes a lot of heart, and it takes some hard conversations. But I think it's certainly, at the end of the day, something that's well worth the time and investment, because the data show, unfortunately, there is a disparity in who gets killed in these crashes as well. And communities of color and underserved communities, and especially Native communities, are overrepresented in crash data.
Thank you, Jane. I see one question here from Dana Sherrod, who is with our Virginia Chiefs of Police organization. I'll just read her question. Virginia law enforcement has seen several key traffic laws change to secondary enforcement because of mistrust of police. What do you think are the best arguments for policymakers to hear so they will support traffic safety efforts by our law enforcement officers?
No, thank you for that question, Dana. This is an important point to make for sure. And enforcement is part of the system that we have right now. And we have built a system, a transportation system, that requires enforcement to remain part of improving safety, at least for the foreseeable future. A lot of the changes I outlined in my presentation will take years to implement, and even longer to really implement on a more whole-scale level. I think the term that I used when I was talking about seatbelt enforcement, of ensuring enforcement is done equitably, is going to be key. And to really get to that is collecting data. There are programs that actually the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, runs, where they provide funding to states to be able to collect stop data, traffic stop data, and be able to detect if there could be any racial profiling that takes place. We testified with a gentleman from Connecticut in the US House of Representatives in February on this topic. He runs a program in Connecticut, and it was amazing the type of data and that they were able to collect in Connecticut, and then really implement changes to reach everyone's end, which is improving roadway safety as a result of that data that they collected. I'm happy to share his information with you so you can follow up with him and learn about how Connecticut has implemented this program successfully and effectively. But I say all of this is really about, we want to work ourselves out of a job, right? We don't want to have to wake up every day knowing that 100 more people are going to be killed on the roadways. I've talked to law enforcement officers who have to make those notifications, and they don't want to do that anymore, right? And law enforcement officers are going to be part of this solution. I think the fair and equitable piece is going to be the key part, and the data to be able to show that is also key.
I would definitely agree with that response. There's another question that I see in the chat box that was placed earlier, and I'm sorry I overlooked it earlier. John Chizeka, maybe hopefully I don't mess up your name too bad. But John asked the question, and I'm going to try to take a first attempt at answering this. If someone who caused a fatality was impaired, speeding, and not belted, which category would they be placed? Well, John, in Virginia, every fatality crash, number one, is investigated. So there's going to be a police report completed. And in that police report, they gather all the information around the crash, evaluate all that information, and then they provide to us what was present during that crash and what they believe was the primary cause of that crash. And they would establish that, and we take that directly from the police officer's recommendation of what he places on that report, what he states was the primary factor in that crash. And so everything would be listed. You would be able to see it on the crash report, but they will give us what is the primary factor in that crash. I hope that answered your question. I have someone here from our crash, from our TREDS, Traffic Records Electronics Data staff, who tells me you can be placed into multiple categories as well. So if those things are present, the impaired driving issue and also the speeding, then quite possibly they would be put in a multiple category. Thank you, Poppy, for that also. I have a question now from our Deputy Commissioner George Bishop, and he writes, Virginia is beginning the process of updating our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, or SHSP, and we have made the decision to use the Safe System approach as the template for our plan. I'm sorry, I just lost that. Do you have any words of advice for us as we begin this process? Are there recommendations that you might have for us as we start thinking of highway safety in the future in this way? Jane?
That's great to hear, especially as somebody who lives in Virginia. So congratulations, I'm glad to hear that. I would definitely recommend taking a look at the report that was in my presentation, and there's a link there, and I can certainly follow up and share the link with you as to those recommendations. But I think data are going to be key in the decision making. And so to be able to collect the crash data and evaluate it is definitely, it has to be the first step. And that will, like I showed you the map of Arlington, Arlington's not unique in that way. I think what you'll see are clear delineation of the troubled spots and all around the Commonwealth. And you'll be able to see where you should focus your time and resources to really create change. I think the other thing too is involve the community, as that conversation that John and I just had. Get the community involved in this, and especially in areas where those community members have not always had a seat at the table. Make sure to bring them along with you as to what you're implementing and the changes that you're making. Because as a point that was made by Dr. Cliff as well from NHTSA, the experience of the road users is really important to understand when you're the engineer or the planner trying to make plans for how to make sure the roads are safe in a certain area. And so I definitely recommend too of that community involvement. That's going to be key to help you make sure you're reflecting what the needs are of that community as well. So take a look at the report, get some data, involve the community, and the community is going to be a wide variety of individuals and groups that are part of that discussion. And I know that that'll get you on the right path. And then lastly, I'll just say, consider all roadway users. So not just necessarily those that are in a vehicle, but also those who may choose to walk and bike. And I know in data that I've seen, walking and biking both exploded in popularity during the pandemic, and enabling people to continue to use that as a mode to be mobile has many, many benefits beyond just enabling them to get to from point A to point B. So check out ensuring mobility for all roadway users as well.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, George, for that question. I appreciate that so much. I see. I'm gonna go to Dwight Jenkins, who is one of our program managers, who is in the Portsmouth area, Norfolk area, Tidewater area, however we want to describe it. He asked the question, might there be any suggestions to work with news and media channels and traffic reporters to move from using the term accident to more appropriately using the term crash? Every opportunity I get, I remind them of that, and I'm sure you do the same. I'm not sure if we made a formal effort at that, but I'll leave that to you if you'd like to comment on it, Jane.
Well, I think being very intentional about calling it out, and especially those of you who are interacting with the media on a more regular basis, to calling that out as a change is going to be key. And the media know and understand that they've got a role to play here of how they're describing these events as well. So I would encourage any of you who are in a communications role or doing interviews with anyone in the media to make sure to point that out either beforehand or after. And of course, if you're using it in the conversation, that's key as well. One of the things that I saw that in the bills that I mentioned that are going through the Congress right now on roadway safety are that they are changing the words in the US code, so in the laws of the nation, from accident to crash. So it's these wonderful steps where people are realizing, and even at that type of level, that words do matter in this case. It helps me to be hopeful that we are really creating some change here in this space and to help people understand that these are not accidents, that they actually are preventable, they're crashes. And I would also encourage you to make sure that you're celebrating these zeros as well. You know, too often we hear about what's the saying, what bleeds leads. How can we make sure that the media are also celebrating these goals, these cities, these towns, these counties that have reached this goal of zero fatalities as well, just like they would talk about a fatal crash that occurred that created a traffic problem.
Thank you so much, Jane. I agree wholeheartedly with that comment, and I find that most folks, when you explain to them why we use the term crash rather than accident, when we tell them, folks make choices. Folks make choices. They choose to speed. They may choose to drink and drive. They may choose to drive distracted. Those are choices you make. We have to talk responsibility when we get behind the wheel of a car. Crashes are no accident. There have been choices made, and there are consequences for bad choices. So that's why we use the word crash. And you know, most folks will say, "Well, I never thought of it like that." Well, that's to me, that's the substance of why we no longer use that word accident. So I thank you again, Dwight, for that question, and Jane for your response as well. I'm going to ask one. We just have a few more minutes. I have another question. Andrea Garland had asked a question regarding our steps. I think she asked this question during Dr. Cliff's video, and it's dealing with steps of the driver's skills test and to reflect vulnerable users' laws and safety needs. For example, do the tests include education about Virginia code that every corner is a crosswalk and the drivers must stop at pedestrians at crosswalks, and most currently bicycle safety laws? I kind of a little bit off topic with Jane, but I'm gonna just take a stab at that very quickly. And Andrea, if I don't answer this appropriately, please feel free to send me personally an email, and I will have someone to get back with you who may be very maybe able to answer a little better. But the driver's manual that you're talking about, number one, and the driver's test are connected, and we come together twice a year to take a look at the current laws that have been passed and to review our driver's manual to make sure what is in that manual is in alignment with the current laws. So to answer your question, yes, we do that. We make that happen, and we most likely make that happen hopefully before as the law comes into effect. So we determine what changes we must make. We also entertain individuals who may just send us emails about things that they would like to see in the manual. However, if we put everything in the manual, it would be so heavy we couldn't be able to carry it around. So we try to keep it specifically to those things that would pertain to the safety of our drivers on the roadways, and we think are important, and that surely would include any of the laws that you just talked about. So to answer your question in just a short word is yes, we do. And we do take that seriously. We have a group of people who come together, not just one, but a group of folks throughout the agency to come together to review that manual and to ensure that it's updated appropriately. And like I say, we do that twice a year. I hope that answered your question. Jane, I'm going to kind of tie on. It seems that the safe system approach is familiar to many professionals in the business. However, it seems to not be getting off to as fast a start as I'd like to see it get off to. I guess, what is it that we need to do? What do we need to do to jumpstart this effort? I mean, to me, this is, you used the word earlier, transformational. I see this as transformational for highway safety going forward, but it just seems to not be getting the traction that I would like to see it get. So what do we need to do politically, socially, professionally to say, you know what, it's time? Does it take a national conference? Does it take something that we can really get this off and running? What's your thoughts?
Well, I would say that Virginia seems to be off to a good start by putting it as what you're going to be using for your safety plan statewide. And that's going to be key. And then take advantage of opportunities to learn more for your professional community. So for your engineers that are out there working for VDOT, I know you have a great partnership with the Federal Highway Administration. They hold regular education sessions on the safe system approach. And I know they would welcome your participation in that. This is going to be looking at things differently. And we all know change is really hard for us people in general, myself included. But I think the benefit that you'll see and some of the data that we've seen from some of these changes will really help change people's mind and get them more on board with what's happening to be able to more fully implement that safe system approach. At the end of the day, it's about reducing and completely eliminating those fatalities on the roadway.
Well, thank you, Jane. I think that really kind of brings us up to our time. We've got maybe a minute. If there's anything at all, Jane, you'd like to close with, I will give you allow you that.
Just again, thank you so much for having me here as a Arlington resident. I'm so proud right now of the work that you're all doing to help promote safety on our roadways. We can't do it alone. We have to really work together to get to zero and reach zero. And I am glad to be your partner in this effort. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jane. You're a great partner. National Safety Council is a great partner. You guys do great work. And we just appreciate you, and I appreciate your time so much for being with us. And I know I speak for Rick and George and the entire DMV in Virginia. We're glad you're a citizen of Virginia. We thank you so much for being with us. And I would like to now, talking to George about George, I would like to introduce DMV Deputy Commissioner George Bishop, who will make our closing remarks. Deputy Commissioner Bishop.
John, thank you so much. Jane, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the opening session of our virtual Highway Safety Summit for 2021. Really fantastic remarks and inspiring. The ideas behind the safe system approach are really something that we, as you say, are really beginning to embrace here in Virginia. We look forward to moving forward with our strategic highway safety plan, utilizing the safe system approach as the nucleus of how we put together our plan for the next 5 years. And so I thank you. Your remarks could not be more timely and more on target, and we thank you so much for that. I want to thank Secretary Valentine for getting us off to such a tremendous start. Her very inspiring words, and how proud I am that we were able to present a video from our new Local Heroes campaign, which will be shown. There are 6 of them in total 6 different areas in Tidewater, each of them highlighting the need for buckling up and utilizing members of our first responders and medical professionals. So we're very, very proud of that. I'm also extremely proud that we were able to have a video from Dr. Cliff, our new acting NHTSA administrator, who was just very open to making that video for us and wished that he could be here in person. So it has been a great way for us to start our summit. Of course, none of this would be even necessary if it weren't for the participants and those of you who have taken your time today to join us and to participate, not only today, but over the course of the next few days. So with that, I want to remind everyone about today being just the beginning, because I do want to go over what the future will bring for the summit. We continue tomorrow with 2 sessions. It starts at 9:30 in the morning with when we're going to hear about persuasive messaging for diverse communities. And then again at 1:30, we'll come back with a session entitled Changing Risky Driving Behavior. That will end it for the week, but not for the entire summit, because next week we start up again next Tuesday, July 20th, with again 2 sessions. The first at 9:30 next Tuesday will be crash data to problem ID in pursuit of answers. And then 1:30 that day, we will turn our attention to marijuana usage and its impact on traffic safety. So very timely session there. And then finally, we're going to close out the summit this year next Wednesday, the 21st of July at 9:30 with a discussion entitled Evolution of the 4 E's, how we build the highway safety system of the future informed by our experiences of 2020. And that's certain to be a lively discussion, or at least I hope it will be, because I'll be moderating that one. So, but again, I just want to thank everyone for your participation. Thanks again to all of the speakers and to John Saunders for being such a good moderator, and of course, finally to our commissioner for his backing in putting this together and for his participation this morning. I will leave you with that, and we'll say that we will see you again virtually tomorrow. This concludes our opening session. Thank you.